quoting Guro here, but he said everybody was laughing about someone kicking from the ground until they saw Renzo Gracie go on all four and tabletop kick, like push kick the other guy in the face. I can remember it was in Pride fighting and knock him out, right? And now you've
Mhm.
seen that kick be done, and then people go, maybe kicking from the ground is not such a bad idea.
Hello, my name's Jamie Sparling. Welcome to the FormABLE Podcast, where we talk about formable moments in martial arts and formable moments in the lives of martial artists. Before we get going, like, subscribe, hit the notification bell so you know when new episodes are coming out, and don't forget to follow Affinity Martial Arts and XTMA on social media. Today I have Sifu Guru Daniel Lonero from XTMA in El Segundo, California, sir?
Yes, I'll see go to California.
Yes, absolutely. Every time I talk to him, I always think I left my wallet in El Segundo. Every time, and I can't give up a
I
bad
do play that
joke.
song once in a while. I do play it.
Good, good. I want to come to El Segundo. I want to do Silat with you, and I want to listen to that song. And I think then my life might actually be complete in some type of circle. How's life treating you today, sir?
Everything is good. We started the new year, so we're training. Classes are running. We almost done with the schedule for the year for the seminars, so everything's pretty much set. Training, usual.
Yeah, all the usual. You're almost done with the schedule for the seminars. Where are you coming to?
What the first one I'm gonna do, it's in Junction City for Nathan Hunt, and that's in a couple of weeks. And then I am going to France after that.
Going to France. Excellent, excellent. How about St. Louis? Do you know you'll be in St. Louis again?
I'll be in St. Louis in June. No, wait, in May. May 31st. May 31st, June 1st, I think.
All
Yeah.
right, that's great. I
We still
really,
decide if we're going to do the camp. We have usually now a camp in the US, so we're going to decide if we're going to do it in St. Louis again or on the East Coast. So I'm just waiting on that, and that's about it.
okay, great. I really enjoyed your seminar that I went to recently. Uh, the warm up and the CLOT progression was like infused with some BJJ at times. And I fell in love with that. As far as like in XTMA, how do you go about mixing the arts? Do you tend to have a blended class or individual classes for some of those arts?
We only offer individual classes. So BJJ is his own thing, and then Silat is his own thing. I only teach Silat online for now, but I am starting to teach a little bit of Kali, I think. And then otherwise, we have the Muay Thai, the boxing, and the other arts are separated.
Okay. Uh, so could you tell us a little bit, well, tell the viewers a little bit about the Majapahit Silat for someone who doesn't know exactly what that is?
Okay, so that's the Majapahit Silat is the art, the Silat form that Guru offers at the academy that covers Southeast Asia. So when I joined in 95, it was called Mafilindo. I mean, or at least back then Guru called it Mafilindo.
Hmm.
I know Majapahit, the word existed before, and then Guru used it for the program. But when I came in, they were using Mafilindo, which stands for Malaysia, Philippines, Indonesia. And then I can't remember exactly when he decided to change it back to Majapahit. And if I understood correctly, he sort of they created it together, they put it together. I think it was two Leo Guy's idea. So Leo Guy, Tuon Guy, Eddie Jeffrey, and Gurudan, they decided to kind of so instead of looking at Silat from one perspective or one lineage, saying like, okay, it's gonna be the Sirac style, this individual, they said no, let's go across styles. So let's research among different individuals and among different regions. So instead of saying, okay, it's just going to be Indonesian Silat, we're going to look at Malaysian Silat, Indonesian Silat, Filipino Silat. And so, and I think if I'm correct, Guru said I think it's to one guy that said they were never united politically, they were never united financially, they were never united in faith, but we were going to try to unite them through martial arts, these regions, right? So
Hmm.
that's why then he went back to the Majapahit, which used to be the name of an ancient empire. the empire that came before, the Srivijaya Empire. And so the idea is to, again, so is to, instead of looking at Silat from the lens of one individual or one geographical place, they just research across the whole region, right? And which is kind of nice because some people in their Silat system, they stop when they go to the ground. But if you continue certain region, they will take it to the ground and expand, right? Like Arimao stop, for example, right? Or some people will not have weapon whatsoever. Some people have very limited like submission. Like for example, Pukulan. Pukulan is very much based on striking, right? So there are a lot of different systems of Silat. So the idea of to research the whole region gives you the opportunity to explore and see what other people do. You know, a good example is Muay Thai because the southern part of Thailand is Muslim. Their system, Guru said, the system of Silat that you find in the south, and I've been there, I've seen them. You will see a lot of Thai people wearing a fez, wearing like a burqa, like they let you know their feature their hair grow, like you know their beard, they let them grow, so they're really much in the faith of Islam. But the system that you find in the south is a bit different than what you know as Muay Thai. Sometimes the Guru said they call it true Muay, which is it's a mix of Thai boxing, but then you will find animal style like flavors with some submission, with some takedowns and things like that. You see pieces of it, like you see more and more nowadays, especially in modern fighting, like one championship, people sweeping the legs
Yes,
after a
sir.
kick. Yeah, you see that nowadays, it's really popular. But Guru's been teaching that for at least easily the 90s, but probably even before that, right? So just to give you an idea of the flavor. So when one style or individual stops, some people, some region continue in terms of techniques. So it's kind of nice to explore the region versus just one place or one person, right? So that's the idea of the Majapahit Silat.
Thank you so much. Uh, with the Majapahit that you're doing right now online, how does that work, and then how do you teach that online?
Okay, so there's a lot of techniques, a lot of material, right?
Yes,
And
sir.
then some materials takes place standing, some material more like striking based, some materials more taking place on the ground, some more like, so there's so many different flavors. So I remember I won't say the basic core because there is so much of it, but there is a list of 12 series, right? Guru has 12 series of Silat. And basically, he said, if I understood correctly, through his research, okay, he collected this technique and said, okay, this is a good representation of what this can be. But it's not the whole system. 12 series, it just gives you a good core base. And then to that, there is a lot of material to add to that. But so, you know, Guru teaches 12 series of 7 techniques, right? And if you think about it, it's very clever because if you were to learn, so 12 times 7, you get to about 84 or something like that. If you had to learn 84 techniques or progression in one shot, it's hard to digest.
Hmm.
And if I said to you, okay, give me technique 62, you'd be like, geez, 62. But if you 7 technique is not that much, and it's 12 series, right? So series 3, technique 4, then it's easier to go back in the files, right? So I took the same idea and I started to think about it like, okay, I can start to do an introduction on Pure Kepala, right? I can do an introduction on kicking from the ground, right? So the digestible bits that eventually they can stand alone, they can be their own thing,
Hmm.
but eventually you can put it back together with the other material. So one bit with another bit, it creates a bigger picture, right? So it's like a puzzle, right? So again, they can stand alone, but the idea is to find your way back and see the whole picture, the whole system, because it is a lot of material. Um, I didn't reinvent the wheel. I got it from Guru. Now,
Sure.
what I try to do is to expose, it's a good archive. You expose people to the art. Silat is even more popular. And to be honest with you, I kind of made a mistake with the kickboxing because we were doing a lot of the same thing with kickboxing, but I waited too long. And to be honest, I got too old, like to demo properly.
Sir.
And then, you know what I mean? Like now, and plus there is so much good kickboxing nowadays that it would not make sense. But at some point I was thinking, oh, it'd be nice to show how Savad combines nicely with Thai boxing and especially with the Panantukan. See, Eric Paulson calls it STX, Savad Thai cross training, which is this is where I got the idea of the X back in the days. But what I think the dimension that I was adding, it was the Panentuken and the blueprints of JKD and things like that. So at the end, we had a neat way of doing kickboxing. But it's kind of hard for me to show it the right way. And I thought, what if I wait too long for the Silat, I won't be able to put it on videos for people to see it. So I thought, okay, let's shoot some videos. It'd be nice to have a record of it, and like this, you can sort of promote it. And a lot of students ask on the seminar, where can we see? I always teach a portion of Silat on the seminars. They go, well, where can we see this, or how do we access that? So I said, okay, I'll do some videos. He started with, of course, the online class. Then I did the same for the Kali. We do a lot of Karenza stuff, which in a way, Karenza is something we don't train that much, especially on a seminar. People don't want to do that. But to have a little library. So I thought, okay, the next thing, what would make sense would be Silat. I can still do it. I can still make it look good. And then like this, I won't make the same mistake, right, that I did with the kickboxing.
We learn from our mistakes, sir.
We do, we do.
Yeah, hopefully, yeah. Uh, so you have two different volumes for your CLAT program online, if I remember correctly. I know there's a volume. There was
We have
the
three.
three.
So far, we have, yeah. So now we have head and arm throw, Prikpala. We have, let me see, the other one is introduction to Pichiun, concept of Pichiun, which is like, recovery after failure. And then the third one now is introduction to Arima. So, like I said, they standalone piece and they cover like a concept or a principle. And then at the end of the day, you should be able to put this thing together and see the bigger picture. Like I have an understanding of what Silat is, right? At the end of every video, what I'm trying to do, and that's something I was able to do always on seminars, but not so much in a short format class or online, is to infuse a little bit of what I was so blessed to learn from Guro, is the culture that goes with it, the mindset that goes with it, right? So sometimes we can talk about health, like Guro always stressed that out. He said, my feeling to see Majapahit Silat, if you do a remount, it's so good for your health because you go up and down, you're constantly using your whole body weight, right? You learn how to move your body in certain ways that usually you don't. We kind of lost the ability to go up and down to the ground. If you're a
Mm-hmm.
jiu-jitsu player, that's no problem. But in general, like everyday people, they don't tend to go up and down. I remember seeing my cousin, his shoelace was untied. This is years ago, and he wanted to tie his shoelace, and by the time he hit the ground, he couldn't like break like pump the brake, and he landed on his knees so hard. And I was like, Jesus, that cannot be good. How did you lose the ability just to do your shoelace, right? But if you don't, especially as you get older, it gets harder and harder to go up and down, up and down. So the Arima Sila is beautiful for that, right? You spend time to the ground, you're close to the ground, you kick, you move, you go up. So I think in terms of health, it's really good. And those are the little lessons that I like to put at the end of the videos, because I think that will really complete the picture, right? Like if you do martial art, okay, you do it for techniques, but what else? What else you getting out of it, right? And so sometimes we don't hear those things, but if you come to the Sound Academy, you'll hear that all the time. Girl will always, spend time mentioning those things, right?
Yeah, absolutely. You had mentioned the mindset behind CLAT. And at our school, sometimes when we do the Harimau, I like to talk to them about being a little kid, like
Hmm.
little kids that are getting up and down off the ground and rolling around. And so much of that we miss as human beings. And after a while, like our spine isn't flexible.
Absolutely, yeah, yeah. The floor, to be on the floor, to be have the ability to play, it's wonderful. That's something even just at the most basic level of just bringing joy. Like how they say sometimes just smiling is important in your life, right? Like activates the vegan nerve, right? To be on the ground and playing, just natural things like that. It's so good for you. It's so good. And sometimes we lose them. We're so focused on go, 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 gotta do, gotta do, gotta do, and then you miss out on that, right?
Hmm. Yeah. In your seminar, I was there for the second day and I wasn't feeling well, so I didn't stick around the whole time. But what I remembered the most was the sea lot at the very, very beginning and how I had just traveled 6.5 hours in the car. And by the end of about 25, 30 minutes, I was ready to train just based on the warm up. There were some different things that you had done and whatnot. Uh, that's really one of the reasons that I love it.
You know where I got that from? So I remember seeing Hickson Gracie do in Choke, the video Choke. He does all these exercise on the beach, like looks so smooth, like so loose. And then when I decided to move permanently to LA, actually it was just before I moved. It was just a year before. Guru said, "Hey, what are you doing tomorrow?" And I was free, and he said, "Well, come with me to yoga jiu-jitsu." And so we went to Roger Machado. Guru was taking classes with every Machado,
Hmm.
and then they all have their flavor, their specialty. And Roger was teaching Guru all these yoga sets. So we used to go in the morning there, and then like he'll show yoga set number one, number two, number three, and they were really, really good sets. And then Guru started to teach more Mao, and he sort of combined the two together. So before the practice of the Silat practice, we'll do all these like windshield wiper, seaweed, you call it horseshoe. Then you'll be doing like evasion, moving up, down, all a lot of preps. I think he still does it. And so I was like, oh, that's amazing because I remember seeing Choke and Hickson Gracie do it. I was like, oh, I feel like I'm doing it. And then pair with the breathing, then going to jujitsu more and more, add a new exercise, that things that fit. But they're not that, it's funny because they're not that far in nature. See, if you say, for example, to an individual wrestling or jujitsu, and then you say silat, they will think two different words, right? Like one is over here, one is over there. But actually, they're not that different in nature because a lot of the yoga jujitsu or a lot of the old school jujitsu, at the end of the day, they have a lot of Indian influence. There are a lot of like all this motion that you find moving the body, even like if you think like wrestling, Greco-Roman, all that, right? They're all influenced from that Fertile Crescent, that all that region, because Asia is very big, it's very wide, right? Like, so at the end of the day, Persian wrestling, all those things. Even now um, I train with some Bulgarian wrestler. I train with some now how do you call it, Dagestani wrestler. All these things, at the end of the day, at some point they touch each other. Silat, Silat, the what you call the capital of the Majapahit Empire was Hindu in nature. It was an Hindu empire. Like where Bali is and all that, all those Balinese are. So they're all based on the triad. They're based on yoga. So yoga, the word yoga means union. So they go union of thinking, union in the way you build your architecture, union in the way you dress yourself, union in the way you make music, union in the way you move your body, right? So that's
Hmm.
why if you see, for example, Thai fighters, they have a lot of yoga in their posture. Like they're always trying to be in good leverage, right? When they do the white crew, they embody figure from Hinduism, right? So you see how all this, at the end of the day, all these things, they're not that far apart from each other. It's a trend, and if it's spread across the world, it is a trend. They touch each other. So at the end of the day, these things, they're not that far from each other. They're connected. So if you want to do good Silat, you should do prep exercise, like warming up exercise. If you want to do good jiu-jitsu, you should move your body. If you want to do Muay Thai, good Muay Thai, you should be able to stand on one leg, create strong angles, block with your frame, especially when you clinch, right? Even when you kick, move your hip correctly. So all those things, they're not that far. Breathe properly, right? When you enter the ring, if you're a tap boxer, learn how to breathe properly. If you're a jiu-jitsu player, learn how to breathe properly. So I know that initially you like yoga, jiu-jitsu, and silat, you're mixing things up, but then they not really. They're based on the same essence, right? How to move your body with efficiency, right?
Yes, sir. Uh, it's funny that you say that. At our academy, I have my Brazilian jiu-jitsu instructor fell in love with Silat, and
Mm.
so he was one of the reasons I started doing the class. I've always wanted to teach it. It's absolutely my favorite martial art, hands down. But most folks don't really know what it is. But we pulled it out one day, and Professor Mike, he already had an idea, but we were doing the Harimau and Le Dot and Kobuk and all those types of things, right? There's a trips, and he saw entrances into leg locks, and ever since then he would bring it up, and all I knew is that every time I did it, my body felt better, and so that's kind of what brought it together, like for us at the school, and I'm really enjoying teaching it now.
it's a healthy art. It's fun to practice, and it adds and bring dimension that some martial art don't have. Because, for example, like if you do leg locks, which is all the rage right now, right? A lot of people were practicing leg locks before, but the dimension it brings is how to strike in between to get from one lock to another, striking from the ground, right? In a way that's martial art based, so not sports based, right? But so how you progress. Also, they have a lot of what they call bali, right? Like breaks. So they don't really think in terms of submission per se, like just one submission. They will rather wrench your arm and then continue to a next position, progress, right? And then maybe so let's say if you go from the bottom to the top, they will heel hook and wrench your knee, then continue, and then maybe hit you in the groin, then wrench your arm, and then go for a choke or for a kill. Of course, it's martial arts, right? But so it adds a dimension that nurses sports doesn't bring. So that's one aspect of it. That's I think it's very important. And the other one, you're looking at something you're not familiar to, but like we did with jiu-jitsu in the beginning, we saw jiu-jitsu was like, oh, this guy rolling on the ground and that. And then, in the beginning, everybody was against it, and now everybody's doing it. So, Sila kicks from the ground, and that, I'm just quoting Guro here, but he said everybody was laughing about someone kicking from the ground until they saw Renzo Gracie go on all four and tabletop kick, like push kick the other guy in the face. I can remember it was in Pride fighting and knock him out, right? And now you've
Hmm.
seen that kick be done, and then people go, maybe kicking from the ground is not such a bad idea. So, that's a bit of a tendency to add some sort of, it's a weird way we divide or analyze things. We add value and points to techniques, efficiency versus like, you stand up, I kick you in the leg, it's good. I put you on the ground, I kick you in the leg, somehow you lost 20 points. You're like, no, I kick you. It's a shin kick, it's a shin kick, it's equally painful, right? If I kick you in the groin standing, or I kick you push kicking the groin, me on the ground, it's the same kicking the groin. Maybe I have even more force because I can engage my quad and my head. But we have a little bit of a tendency like that. But at the end of the day, even if you don't think about just the efficiency of the art, there is a fun aspect to it. Now, there is one thing that girl brings up, and again, and this is not planned, believe it or not, but I do have it here. You add this type of object, you see
Yes,
it?
sir.
So you add this type of object to your CLAT like this. Uh, and now you change completely the conversation, right? Because now on the ground, the knee pull is section your artery, right? Like you have an artery that goes by your leg there, like
Sir. Tendons
now.
and everything.
Yeah, of course. Oh my God, if you block the kick and I go like this on your Achilles tendon, that's pretty much it, right? But I don't, I don't advise this, and I don't want to glorify it, okay?
Yeah.
But I just want to bring it to the attention, right? Just to say that okay, it brings different flavors, it brings different views, right? So we should study, learn it. It's good to study what you go against too as well, huh? To take Guru's words. But at the end of the day, it completes the picture, right? Especially if you amateur of martial art. Now, just to add a little bit of con, what's not so good sometimes, we tend to go overboard with that, and then we become a little too graphic and a little too enthusiastic about slicing and dicing people. That I'm not a big fan of, right? You should know what's offered, what's out there. You should add a progression of values and okay, this is used for this is used for that. Warfare, okay. Civilian, absolutely not, things like that. But it's good to study at the end of the day, right?
Yes, absolutely. And that's one of the other things I'm glad you brought it up that I enjoyed the talks that you gave at the seminar
Oh,
as
thank you.
well. Yeah, you're welcome. That's one of the parts of the Silat is like the Hormat and the if I remember
Yeah.
correctly, the Adat, which is the
Good.
unwritten rules and the code of
Yes.
conduct.
That's right. Good memory. Yes. Yes. That's the list Guru gave us, especially in the camps. So it tells you a little bit the structure of Silat. But one of the aspect is the Adate de Ormat. So the respect, the code of conduct, and so what's expected from the student, right? The written and unwritten laws of Silat. So it's funny because you enter into the world of Silat, even if it's Majapahit Silat, so it's more than one country. You enter into a culture, right? And so every culture, even if it's martial art culture or subculture, they have sets of rules, and some time they're explicit and sometimes they're implicit, and you have to be paying attention because you can quickly be in or out. There is different ways to behave when you enter someone's house, right?
Yes, sir.
So I remember when we went, Maria and I went to Cambodia. We spent about a month in Cambodia, and the first thing when we spent a few days, we had a little briefing, and they were explaining to us just the customs, how you take the money with two hands, how you bow to someone that's older than you, how do you, if you cross someone's older than you, you pass in front of them to lower yourself, not just pass by. Simple thing, but we have the same thing here. If you ride the bus and there is an old person that comes into the bus, what do? You stand up and give your seat, right? So there's just this it's those are normal things. Social, social lubrication, make the world go round by just having good manners, right? Like
Hmm.
folkways, right? But it's good to know them, right? And so in Sila, there are all these folkways. Some are really hard laws, and some are pretty loose, but you should know those things, they give you different perspectives. It's funny because what can be really appropriate in one culture is absolutely like taboo or seen very frowned upon in another culture, and then you have to be a little savvy that way, right? Like proximity, uh body parts that you're allowed to touch, like if you don't touch people's head in Thailand, that's a big no unless you're a kid. Unless they're
Sir.
a kid, you touch their heads, but you never present your feet. Don't put your feet on something. Don't present your feet to someone. Things like that, like, I don't know, maybe I mentioned that earlier in the last interview with it. But if you drop a coin, never stepped on the coin. You know how you drop a coin and you want to stop it with your foot? You
Hmm.
cannot do that in Thailand. Do you know why?
Why?
Because there is the on the stand there is the face of the king. So you can never step on the king. It's
Yeah.
interesting. You see? So things like that, like so we have all have our ways to do things, and see that they have the same way.
Yeah. It, for so many folks, and I know for myself from the Midwest, the cultural appreciation of the differences of others, that I learned those things through martial art, and even in a way that I'm completely wrong. In my mind, you don't put your feet up on people's stuff because you want to respect their stuff.
Mhm.
But what you had just said is that you just don't present your feet.
No, you don't present your feet in Thai culture. It's not. They don't like that. Also your feet. A lot of people are barefooted. You spend a lot of, so that's sort of a little bit of a dirty part of you, right? And
Mhm.
yeah, things yeah, the different culture. It's good to know. It's good to learn those things because, for example, I travel quite a bit, and
Mhm.
then I know that sometimes I travel also just not for martial art, just to travel. I meet people, and I know that just to know just a little bit about their culture and just say hi, or just a few words in there, or just a little something goes a long way. So you don't have to know the whole. It's hard to study someone's culture thoroughly, but just to create a little bridge goes a long way. And people like that and they welcome you much better. So just to know, I remember when I was a kid, it's funny because I used to go to my friend's house and his dad used to get mad at me all the time because I just take my shoes off. I'll take my
Mhm.
shoes off and they'll be like, hey, what do you think? You're home? Man, just put your shoes back on. And I was like, oh, sorry, sorry. And then, my wife's Filipino, right? And we go to Filipino house or Asian house, you don't keep your shoes on for sure, right? So shoes off. So now it's in reverse. If you keep your shoes on, they go, oh, how rude, don't keep your shoes on. So it's not so much, there is a reason for everything, but it's about like meet people where they at and understand what is it that they do. And sometimes you change your angle perspective, you go, okay, I get it. And I think it's not so much important that shoes is on and off because there is a reason for everything.
Mhm.
It's according to the place and according to the reason, just adapt. But I tell you another little thing that's kind of cool, and I don't know if you know, but or some of people know in general.
Sure.
But if you cook with Guro, it'll always go like this. It'll go like if you do the abecedar, it'll be like gunting to a backhand, gunting to a heaven three, gunting to an umbrella three, you know? And in that little sentence, there is quite a bit because if you say gunting to a backhand, what happened? You have a word in Filipino and a word in English.
Mhm.
And so it's an easy way to enter into Filipino culture to give you just a language because gunting means scissor, but that's a Filipino word. But backhand is English, right? You could have said gunting to orthobis, which gunting backhand, but then you say consistent with the language, but then you might pull put people off. They might go, well, that's too much. If you come to want to learn something and I give you everything in Italian, you'll be like, whoa, that's a lot. But I give you a little word in my language, and then I give you a little word in English, you go, okay, that's an easy way in, right? And he was telling us that's from his mom, because when he was organizing the program, she said, well, go, for example, maybe you go heaven six, but you can go umbrella six. So umbrella is a Filipino term, or it's or you, although we have it in English too.
Sure.
But things like that, right? You go, okay, that's kind of cool, easy way, right? That's why when my students come here, usually I always say bonjour, just to just to get them just a little buongiorno, just a little, just get out of your, just out of the box, just a little by little, get out of the box and start to open and see what's out there, because the world is a big place, offer a lot of different things. So Silat, Majapahit Silat, it's a great tool for that because not only it's different lineages, but different countries, so you can almost travel with it. You can go, okay, how do they Silat? They do Silat, let's say, in the southern part of the Philippines. How do they Silat? Malaysian Silat, Burr Silat. And then you go across the region, right? If you're lucky, you study with different people, then you see the different flavors, right?
hmm One of the things that I find fascinating too, and it's only logical, but sometimes as human beings, we're pretty uptight about culture and stuff like that. However, if we show a genuine curiosity, most people, it's been my experience, and I hear this from my wife all the time. She works predominantly with a lot of Hmong people here in at her job, and she's always learning about their culture. And all she has to do is be inquisitive and curious, and they will share it, right? Almost the
And
same, kind of like the same thing with martial art. How do you remain curious after doing martial arts for so long and being around so many different cultures?
curious about the art, you mean, like the different martial arts?
The art, but also the tie into the culture.
Oh, I think that's easy. Like, you know, it's funny. I'm gonna tie it back to where we started off, okay?
Yeah.
So we talk about spend time on the ground, right? Like,
hmm
I don't know how you grew up, but the way I grew up, we had a garden, spend time on the ground, just play whatever, just messing around. But you see flower, you see plants, we had, apple trees, you know, you see that the land is good. The earth is good, provides other good things, so you have a connection to the earth, that maybe your mom, she cooks you something, it's time she calls you up, then you eat, and you're like, wow, this is good. This is like, that connection with the worldly things is very healthy. And so obviously, when you go to other places, you realize, oh, they do different things. They have a connection with their land is different. The way they dress, the way they eat, the language they speak, but the words often they're different and often they meet too. Mama, dada, papa, those basic words we find in different culture, right? So being a human tied to your land, tied to things, and then moving across, you want to know what the other people. They're not forceful bridges, more like out of curiosity, out of love, out of great experiences. That's why I'm big, and I think I learned that from my cousin when I was maybe like 14, 15 years old on the slow food movement, and some people go, what's that to do with anything? But the slow food movement was always about respect. They call it terra madre, the mother earth, it was about do things slow. Time is a marker quality. Do things with care, respect the people that do the things they do, and involve yourself, you get involved, participate, so once you have to have that approach, it's easy to take a trip and to go to California and you start to see, oh, the climate is different. Oh, they grow vegetable different. Oh, the food you taste. Oh, the Mexican culture is here too. Oh, check this out. Oh, they have a little Ethiopia. What do? They eat with their hand. And so it's so easy. it's the opposite of being difficult, to be honest. To me, it's when I see people closed off, when I see people not wanting to make a bridge, that always, always, how to say, it gives me a little bit of like, a strange feeling. I'm always like, oh, why? Why do we, like, I love meeting people, talking to them. They say, what are you about? What you doing? Sit on the bench, just have a conversation. That's something, for example, in California, we do quite well. You can go anywhere, you sit down next to someone, you can strike a mini conversation. It won't last, too long. It won't be the best friend of your life, but it's easy. Northern country in Europe, sometime to initiate a conversation might take a little bit of, you soften them up a little bit first. But it's interesting. Culture is like it's so interesting. And another thing that culture teaches you, it's about yourself,
Mm.
because we are under the influence of culture, and somehow those are invisible forces that we're on our shoulders, and sometimes we carry ourselves certain ways until we go to other places, and then we see the difference, right? We stand out like a sore thumb, and you're like, oh wow, and then you reflect, it teaches you about yourself. You go, why do I do this? Is it serving me? Is it useful here? Is it useful home? Do I need it? And if I don't, then maybe I can change something because it's about you, right? So yeah, exactly. Like it's a silly example what I'm saying, but being open, talk to people. Maybe you go back home and go, why not talk to people? Why should we have be so far away from each other? What can like we were in the we were in Cambodia. I was telling you, when we were having someone driving us, we stop at the car. It's really hot, so windows are open. Now it's full of motorcycles, right? Like, little mopeds everywhere, like buzzing everywhere. But so everybody gets at the red light, and all of them puts their elbow into our car. So everybody's elbow is into your car. You're like, whoo, all right. I mean, I'm talking about like, I don't know, 6, 8 people pretty much on your car. Some people just lean on the thing. So, and this totally normal, totally normal. I remember an instructor telling me he was doing some work in Latin America, and then they were waiting in line, and this old lady came up the hill, and she was tired. She was tired. She came up the hill, and she needed somewhere to rest, so she just put her arm on his shoulder. She was like just resting. She just used, and it was totally like they never met each other, but it gives you an idea, right? Proximity, culture, the way we do things, the way we speak, the way we think, the way we eat, all those things, so it's easy to stay curious. I think I love meeting people. That's the most beautiful thing.
Me too. And one thing I took out of there, I mean, well, anyway, one man's confidence is another man's arrogance, right?
Mm.
So being open to that, because sometimes as a younger person, especially a younger martial arts teacher, I was trying to exude confidence because I was learning how to teach. And
Mhm.
that's not what everybody got all the time. And looking back, I just think about, I'm happy for the growth in that, 17 years or whatever. But at the time, like when you're young, chin up, chest out, that is like, well, I know what I'm talking about. But someone who's watching is like, oh my gosh, this guy's arrogant. It's so
Yeah.
easy to cross those borders.
Yeah, I think that's a good point. And as martial artists, anybody though, anybody that does some sort of, you're a facilitator, you guiding a group, so you have interaction with people, how you come across. And okay, it can be cultural lenses. In their culture, you're too boastful.
Hmm.
Like in the US, for example, right? I think I think it's safe to say if someone takes charge, they want him to be direct, clear. The stoner's voice should be pretty loud. Like we should hear you well. Instruction. Come. You present a certain way. I think in Asian culture that might not, you I don't think you'd be seen necessarily as a master that way, right? You're seen like too much. Also, in some culture, they like you to scratch your head and do at least 50% of the work versus me verbatim. I want this, and that. They'll rather say like, this needs to be done. You take care of that. How you gonna problem solve around this? But also leaves you a little bit of, leaves the power to you, leaves, your voice. We can see how, and then also room for mistakes. how
Mm.
you go about mistakes, like some people, they're very coercive, they're very like into not punishment, but if you make a mistake, it's not good, then they slap on the hand. Versus other people say, no, obviously he's in training, he's learning, so he will probably do mistakes, let's manage how many he's going to do, and then actually happy that you do some mistakes, maybe recover from them, or didn't fall into a trap. So style, right? It's a teaching style, coaching style, and things like that. But I think what we can be where we can be safe and say, okay, a good place to come from is the place of, and this is not from me. I had the same conclusion, but a good friend of mine that I teach here says it this way: you should know what you're talking about, and you should have the other person's best interest in mind, right?
Mm.
So I always thought, how do I select my instructors? Of course, that they seem proficient in what they do, even though if they don't know all the answers, but kindness. I always select my instructor out of kindness. If I see someone, I can tell, and when I say kindness, I'm not talking about tree hugger, right? I'm talking about some, I mean, it doesn't have to be a hippie or something. But I'm just saying, because being kind, sometimes it's also being firm, in a way, because you're kind, you care about the person. And so, but it's the way you deliver the message. Like Guru sometimes say like, I'm sorry, I can't. You can't do that. I can't let you do that. Like it's like this, like it's a no, but it's a firm, it's how would I say, not firm. It's a no, no, it's no. So it is firm, but it's the way you bring it to the other person. It's like it's in a kind way. You say that unfortunately we won't be able to do that. We can accommodate that, right? Or whatever. But so that's the way I pick it. So I think you can never really go wrong with that. You know what you do, and I know you're doing it for me. So doesn't matter if the pill is easy to swallow, hard to swallow, but I know you have my best interest in mind. Versus if you puff up your chest and you have to prove yourself, I think sometimes comes from insecurity a little bit, right?
Hmm. Insecurity, trauma, whatever we want to call it, all of those different things. It's
Yeah,
all,
also,
yeah.
yeah, you go. Yeah. Now, sometimes being a student is also a skill because you should never, you should not fool yourself. Some people, they have a master in front of them, but they just can't see it. I've seen that. And then you're like, I see them come and then act poorly and then leave thinking like, oh, these guys got nothing. And they're like, oh, you missed out, man. Your behavior. It's probably harder to be a student than to be a teacher, because you have to be you have to be how savvy, you have to be how to carry yourself, right? You have to be you have to pay attention to subtleties, like you don't want to hurt nobody's feeling, like some teacher, their expectations, some people, they lay down like this is what I need from you to be accepted. Some people, those are hard. Southeast Asian culture very much like that. They're not going to tell you. You're gonna have to show your colors, you have to show what you're made of. So you have to be very, very careful the way you navigate those. Why? Because some doors can close. And it's not just martial arts. Business is like that too, right? If you they welcome you into a business, like it could be like any industry, right? But you have to prove yourself, and how you gonna show you're reliable. Maybe they go, okay, well, they go, let's meet tomorrow at 6 a.m. or 7 a.m. and we're going to do something that's not so much fun. And they'll see if you show up on time, or if that time you rather, it just depends, it depends. But people are watching, people that I know are watching, and yeah, I believe it's a good thing though. It's a good thing. You have to pay your dues, little by little, you know.
Hmm. And all
Hmm.
that watching needs to be compiled over a certain amount of time, right? I
Yes.
mean, at the very beginning, like in any relationship, I think it's Chris Rock who says that when back in the 90s before internet dating, he had said that when you start to meet somebody, you don't meet them, you meet their spokesperson. Right. So
That's true.
the first date
That's,
is like two
that's right.
spokespersons, and then
That's right.
I don't know, 5, 6, 7, whatever that is. After a while, you're like, hold the door, right? And sometimes it gels, and sometimes it doesn't gel. And I think most relationships are like that. What I liked that you had said was how important it was that the instructor had the student's best interest at heart.
Yes, I think that's key, right? Because then
Hmm.
even if the instructor makes a mistake, it came from a good place, because everybody makes mistakes, right? And then maybe it's not your coaching style. Maybe I'm just assuming this up, but you're someone that needs to be he give you verbal cues. Some people are more visual. Okay, so maybe it's not your coaching style, but he has your best interest in mind. So that's fine. You have to, every instructor you meet as a student, you have to understand the way they teach and meet them. But if you pass that, sometimes you can discover very new things. Like, it's a silly example, but if you, I mean, I don't want to make stereotypes, but if you train with someone from France, they
Hmm.
tend to be pretty cerebral, you know. Body center of gravity goes to the right, body weight, external rotation, everything is kind of like almost like you're doing like engineer work. But if you go to take an extreme, Brazil, or Filipinos, they're not going to explain all that. They're going to go, yeah, just the best you're going to get is move your hip. Move your hip. Wow, man, you flat. You flat. Move your hip. You're like, oh, what's that mean? I'm flat. You're like, you vertical. How can I be
Uh-huh.
flat? We don't. Sorry. But so yes, but so you have to make the jump and then the bridge, right? You can ask for clarification, but at the end of the day, yeah, I think it's a two-way street. The student has to make a big effort too, right?
Hmm.
Interesting. Learning is the proper of life. That is, it's intrinsic, it's the proper of life. When you're 6 years old, you're not the same at 12, 12, 21, 21 to 40. And if you stop learning, you stop growing, then you go against ontological law, meaning the law of nature. You go
Hmm.
against we meant to learn and to grow like a plant. We meant to grow, right? And if you stop, then you're missing out. That's probably the biggest problem. It's not the mistakes, it's not taking part. you know Making mistake has never been an issue because that's how we learn. Otherwise it would not be called learning. It'd be, you know it already. Right?
Hmm.
But the not taking part, staying on the sideline, being scared of, that is too much scare, too much fear. That's not good because it creates sort of a bubble that you're afraid to. You have to have friction. You have to interact. And that's what we're talking about: culture, frictions, people crossing, passing by. Exchanging. That's very important. I think you grow that way for sure, 100%. Look at the world. It's very interesting. Look at the world. You don't have to go that far back, but before we circumvent the world, people were in their geographical places, and to take a boat. Man, my grandma took a boat to Peru. It took her a month when my grandma's born in 1920. Her mom came to live in Peru for 1 year. It took her 1 month traveling. Now, last October, I went to England in 12 hours. I think it was 10 and a half flight, just to the difference. So the world has the tendency to want to travel and be joined and move and connect information. Look what we do with the technology, right? It's the proper human being. They want to see each other. We want to travel. We want to go for good reason, bad reason, right? Sometimes you just want to secure natural resources. By the end of the day, there is an expansion. That's our tendency, right? You without qualifying good or bad, there is an expansion, and we tend to want to go and immerse, right? So that's the proper growth, expansion, right? Moving, not staying your little self.
Yeah.
There was a sorry, go ahead.
No, please.
No, I was just about to say there was a good course I took in social linguistics, and they were talking about how language change. There was this region in England where nearby London. London has always been considered the proper English, right? How you speak English correctly. And I can't remember where it was, but there was a city far from London where the speech pattern was very like dialect, okay? And they witnessed a big change in that city, and they were studying what made the city evolve like this. The level of education went high, which led to have a better social income, social status, economical status. And so it was simply the building of the freeway. The building of the freeway make the passage go, people start to travel up and down way faster. And then people just spend more time in the city, their ear changed, then they pass it on to and that's how it works, right? And then the access to education, things like that, right? It's funny, right? But it just, bridges, right? Connections, right? So much.
Absolutely. Bringing it back to the Majapahit Silat,
Mhm.
there's so many bridges and connections that come through, well, any martial art, right? But at the same time, this one in particular. And I always find it absolutely fascinating to think about the times where something started to make sense, right? Uh, so they're the outside sweep and the silat sapu lower, right?
Mhm. Yeah.
And never made sense for me. And
Yeah.
it just did not, the weight distribution, whatever it was, it never made any sense. And I got to train in Mandimuda in
Yes.
in the 90s with one of the first uh, certified instructors. His name was Michael Hands. He was a Catholic priest, and
Oh.
it was a unique experience. He would come, and he didn't have a school he taught at. He was a priest. So sometimes I'd show up for my private lesson. I probably did like 10 or 12 of them, something like that. And he would come in and he'd be wearing his priest outfit. Yes. And he would apologize because he just got done doing a funeral.
Oh
And
well.
he uh, would say, "Give me a few minutes." And then he would go into his office and he'd change everything. Okay. And he'd come out and he'd wear the sarong. He had the Muslim cap and he had them along. And we would go into sometimes the rectory. Sometimes there'd be something that would like be set aside for us. But many times it was like, well, no, they just had a meeting here last night, Jamie. I'm really sorry. And this is my private session, but I don't care. Right. So I'm just helping moving chairs. And we would move 8 chairs out of the middle of this and then he'd throw me. And there was no mats or anything, and he was very tall, and he would crawl up underneath me with the hearty mow, and it was just amazing. And I got sidelined in that story there. Uh, but so in learning the Sapulauer, nothing ever there was no form, there was no Kenjit, there was nothing that made it where I made sense.
Hmm.
Then I ended up in St. Louis with Guro, and we were doing Hubud, and he did an arm drag from the Hubud and shifted the weight on the person. And then he said, "Well, that's Kali. You think it's Kali because I learned this from my Greco-Roman wrestling instructor."
Uh,
And because of that time at that particular seminar, I now understand. I can't pull it off all the time, but that's why we have to go for more than one thing. But that's how I understood at that moment what Sapulauer actually was, or the outside sweep. It's
that's exactly it. See, Guru does that so well. Like it takes you out of your box, changes the perspective, and all of a sudden you click, right? You're like, oh yeah, the arm drag from the wrestler, and then you sweep from the huba. Huba is, I guess, if you want to label it, it's a drill from the Philippines, right? But then an arm drag from a wrestler, and then you go back to your silat sweep that you had a hard time to do. But see, that's exactly it. By changing the perspective, the lens, all of a sudden something that you stuck can start to open up. And so it shows you that sometimes we stuck. Most of the time it's us. We block ourselves from the sight of things, right? So that's why you have to kind of okay, pause, change the angle. This is what Guru does. He takes a let me see if I have a pen here. He goes like this. Let's make this up. Saddle. Oh yeah. Okay. He goes like this. This you see, he goes like you see this object? I put the black person. He goes, if I show it to you, you just see a black dot. So you say, okay, that's a black dot. Because it's only when you start to lean on the other side that you start to see, oh, there is length to it. And then he goes, well, let me go around it. Oh, there is a back, and that's not the same color. But up to that point, all what you see is a black dot. You think it's just 2D in front of you, just a black dot. It's only by changing the perspective of the angle that you're like, oh, and that's what you did, right? And that's why Go is a master at doing those things. And it takes a genius to be able to do that. Like someone that goes, okay, I'm just gonna drop everything I know, step to your side, and then change again and then put it back together. That's what I did with the Majapahit. So, being Tuongai at Jeffrey and Guru Dan, I don't know exactly what's the weight, but I know for sure that I know Guru Dan, and that's something he always does, right? Like study the whole region like that. That's amazing, right? That's very clever. You study trends, you study body motion. across places and people, not a style, not a flavor, not one person's cooking. And I think that's very, very strong, very powerful, right? It's
Yeah.
good. You can study one lineage, it's great. There's no problem there. But the fact that it goes beyond, okay, representing one person. That's why, I remember when I joined the academy in the 90s, the first thing we learned was the numbering system. And then for years and years and years, you won't do it. You know? Did I tell you that story already? I can't remember
No,
if I told you.
no. Go
But
ahead,
it
sir.
was it was the funniest thing because now I see new people coming up and Guru will teach the illustration, will teach this and teach that, but it won't teach the sound of blend. And I'll be like, it's funny, these guys, they've been out there for 5 years, 8 years, they will not know the numbering system. And I would think, well, that's the first thing you should learn. It's like, the basic, right? And then grew in the class, he just said it casually, but that's when I was like, oh, that's really smart. He goes, have you noticed I don't teach the numbering system? And then we were like, and I was like, yeah, I have, actually, I have, right? And he goes, because I teach the Illustrissimo first, I might teach the Lameco, I might teach the this and that, he'll mention a few styles. But he goes, I teach our numbering system last because I'm not trying to promote our school. I'm trying to promote Filipino culture, right? And so if I teach first my numbering system, okay, we start with my thing, the Innocent Blend, my school, my style, my lineage, okay? But that's not the mission is about. It's about promoting Filipino culture for people to have appreciation, understanding. So, and then last on, at some point you go, okay, now this is our number system, right? But it's true, right? Because people tend to do that, right? Like if they have to have the wave the flag or they have their color, right? Like
Hmm.
the wings, where they belong, So the first thing they want to know, okay, my sense of belong. Who are we? We are this tribe. We are these guys, right? But that's not what he's doing. He's not doing like, oh, we are Inosano guys, or we should wear this and that. He goes, no, here, this is what Filipino martial art looks like. Have an appreciation, make friends. And then, okay, the way I put it together, the way that's, I'm paraphrasing and I'm putting words
Yeah.
in Guru's mouth, but that's, I thought that was so clever. I thought, because that we all tend to do that, right? Like if you go to a new gym and I show you the white crew, you'll be so happy to represent your gym. Normal. But it's not about that. It's about saying, like, I want to promote Muay Thai. And then later we'll put the icing on the cake. I'll show you the white crew, right? Kind of cool, huh?
It's very cool. Those are
Yeah.
those moments of growth, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that reminded me of, quite often someone will come in and they'll have an idea of what they're going to do in martial art, and
Uh-huh.
and I want to listen to them, and I want to whatever. And in my mind, and it took a long time for me to get there, I was thinking, that's not at all what we're going to do. And I want to correct them. But the more I learn to listen, they're letting me know where they're coming from, what their
Yes.
expectation is, right? And
Yes.
what you had talked about there was the numbering system, and someone might literally think that is the first thing you should learn, right?
Yeah. I mean,
And
you would think.
and for some people it is. Uh,
Yes.
but at the same time, the great example Guru is giving about, well, that comes later because that's got my name on it.
Yeah, type of thing. Yeah. And also it sets up, yeah, exactly like you said, the expectation, the mission statements right there. Say like, okay, this is not about you, me representing one brand, one color, one thing. It's about study, growing, meeting people, analyzing, trend, and ultimately studying you as a person, right? The human body. How can he move? What can he do? What can he not do, right? It's not about like, okay, I take you out of one jail to put you in another jail, right?
Ooh,
It's
yes.
because there's some people, I mean, I have to be careful the way I say this, but I can sort of spot people's background pretty good, saying, you do taekwondo? Yeah, how do you know? Did you do karate? Yeah, how do you know? I say like, well, because it looks like you stamp that flavor, you bring that flavor to everything you do. But when you play a rock, you play a rock, and then we play a reggae, you play a reggae. Sure, there's some crossover, but why do you bring your, why you bring your rock and roll into your reggae? Just don't, you know what I mean? Like that's confusion fusion, right? You can mix things, but you have to be savvy, you have to know where the flavor are meeting, right? The right, you know what I mean? Like
Yes.
So
Yes.
that's the hard line to walk, because it's not about, okay, this is here, this is there. That's not what I'm saying. But I'm saying, like, you don't have, you should be malleable, right? Now, I remember this Wing Chun guy in France. He said to me something I still remember to this day, and he was right. He said, okay, so a karate block, like I do a karate block, I do a tanda, I do like a kempo block. I mean, how hard is this? It's the same stem. I'm just moving my arm one way or another. Why you can do this, but when I ask you to do this, you cannot? Like, I'm just adding up. You open your hands, and if you're not able to let go of this, everything you do is always like this. You do what you call it, like Wing Chun, but all of a sudden you have to kind of make a karate style. It means you in a jail. You put yourself in another jail. You cannot free yourself from these. I don't know what it is, mental blockage or something, right? It's
Hmm.
interesting, huh? So you see how. So I think that's what it's about. It's about, okay, be an instrument, be smooth, be able to express art. Don't be locked in, because at the end of the day, you have more solution that way too, right? Mm.
Yeah. I,
Interesting.
I believe I really liked the I had to write this down. Confusion fusion.
I got that from. I think I got that from a cooking show.
Well, I it fits in a lot of different contexts, that's for sure.
I tell you, if you don't like food, it's hard, because food is the building block of the body. And if you don't value the earth, the land, what are you exactly protecting? Then, the food, every lot of things happens around the table, right? Cultures pass on around the table, right? We cultivate, we look at the climate depending on what's around the table, right? Or is it going to rain? Are we going to have the famine? Are we going to, so, back to the basics. In Chinese, they say food are the three worms, you know? Food are the three words because it's the birth of greed. Food is the
Mm.
birth of greed, because when you're born, you're hungry and you're cold. You need to be attended to. You need to be safe. You need to be fed, right? So it's one of the first greed. So if you don't check how your level, your connection to the earth, you might become very greedy and also very disconnected, right? So it's interesting. So it's one of the first worm. Then it's the second worm, because if you eat bad food, it can literally kill you. You
Hmm.
know, it can give you obesity, it can give you heart disease, it can give you the sugar one, what you call it, what you
Diabetes.
call it? Diabetes. I mean, so you gotta be careful. It's interesting, huh?
It's
So
very.
food is, I'm just saying as an example, but worldly things that are ties to the land and how you defend it, how you go about it, how you share it. There's something special in there. Interesting, huh?
Yes. And when people care about you, they attend to those kind of things. And sometimes, like in martial art, they're prepared something for you. And that
Yeah,
represents their time in the kitchen or their time on the mats,
100%.
right? And trying to
100%.
give you that peace.
And if I take everything away from you, the first three things you would want is a shelter, some food, some water, and maybe a little bit of warmth, or someone, some physical, someone that protects you, right? So it's not your phone, it's not your bank account, but it's interesting. You bring it back, you boil it back down to the essentials, right?
Yeah,
Mm,
for
interesting.
sure.
Yeah. Martial art is very much about that, because we start, especially weapon-based martial art, we start with agricultural tools. We start with
Yes.
inside the land, and then this becomes weapon to defend those. You know, Plato in the Republic, when he wrote the Republic, it's interesting. He talks about that. He goes, "What do you do if you grow too many crops? What happens when you grow too many crops? We have, you start to go into extensive agriculture where you grow more than you need. Well, and then he has this dialogue in the Republic, and he goes, "Well, we're going to need an army." And he goes, "How so?" He goes, "Well, because if we have too many crops and the village next door doesn't have enough, chances are they're going to come to try to take our crops." Hence the birth of military. That's
Hmm.
interesting. And isn't martial art about military? Isn't about securing, see how that works. But you see, you have to make connections. And it goes back. Capitalism comes from extensive agriculture, right? When you have too much of it, what do? You start to create commerce with it, right? But most people don't, you have to tie it back to the simple things, right?
Hmm.
So people grow your own crops. That's basically it.
You know, we're in Wisconsin and people absolutely love all that
Yeah.
stuff. And
It's best stuff. It's better stuff, better quality stuff. Feeds your body, feeds your soul. It's time. It's important to spend time doing things, Time is linked to attention, how you can spend attention, attention allocation. Spend time doing something and refine the quality of what you do, being a movement, being anything, any craftsmanship, right? When you want to go too fast, quality gets, like gets lower and lower and lower too fast, right? So speed, time, attention allocation, right? If you can spend, yeah, a long time into a place, that's how you learn. That's how you absorb things. That's why I teach kids here, make them repeat all the time. I learned it from the best, man. I learned it from Guru Dan. Repetition, repetition, repetition. In a way, what you see on the seminar is the opposite of what you see in a class with him, because in a seminar you see a festival, a firework, like a million of techniques and concepts displayed everywhere. You're like, and you, of course, it blows your mind, right? Like you go to a nice restaurant, they give you a 17 or I don't know, 12-course meal. It's succession of things, and you taste in the conclusion of someone, right? But when you go back in the lab or in the kitchen or at the academy, what they're doing? Rep, 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 and rep, and rep, and rep, high level repetition. And that's what people have a hard time to do sometimes, right? Especially nowadays where, our attention is getting divided more and more, right? It's interesting, huh? Very, very interesting how all this ties together. But I love that because then it's not just martial arts. It's not just okay, me punching the bag, right? It comes all together. You need to have things to defend. You need to have values, You need to have something that you feel you belong to, right? Meaning. If you have meaning, your art was going to be very, very strong. And if you're lucky enough and you go into in-depth learning, you can realize a lot of things are not what they seem to be. You can do your Muay Thai differently, you can do your Jiu-Jitsu differently. You link your body, your breath, how you think, how you feel all together. To me, now I'm 50 years old, going to 51. That's wonderful because you're asking, how do I still love it? It's new doors opening all the time. You're like, oh wow, I wish I had another 50. I need
absolutely,
another 50. I need another 50 because there's too much to study here.
yeah, that's bring it back to your seminar. That's one of those things that I really enjoyed that day that I came. I just can't really, I can't express it to you enough because we just did things I've done before in a different flavor, in a different sequence, and the way that you taught it was different. And that to me is what keeps me going. It's
Okay.
not about, one more technique. It's like there's not enough time in the day to really practice everything, uh, but trying to find those fundamental threads that go through things, but at the same time have a new experience.
Yes.
That's so important, and I think a great many people.
Right? I was just about sometimes it's the same thing, but you go deeper into it. So it's the same thing, but you see it from another perspective.
Yes, absolutely. And as we get older, it's real easy to believe our own hype and say, well, this is what you do, this is how it's taught, and it needs to go from here. But
Yeah.
at the same time, like, well, but when I went over here, they said that the knife was the first thing you learn. And then I went over here and they gave you one stick. And you said, well, I brought two. And they go, so that's great. Put the other one away. In this class, we start with one,
Yeah.
right? And that can be really confusing. But my point is, the more that we know sometimes as human beings, uh, the less that we can learn, the empty the cup piece.
That's very true. Yeah, it's true. It's very important to stay fresh if we can, right? But I
Hmm.
see what you say, and it's very true. In the beginning, it's hard to see the connection. You have double stick, you have single stick, dagger. These guys start with double, these guys start with the dagger. And at the end of the day, especially because Southeast Asia, and I'm generalizing, but
Hmm.
tend to be a little bit like obscure sometimes, where the weight is, the the, the responsibility is put more on the student in the sense that you have to want it. You want to understand. I'm not going to tell you why we do this. I'm going to show it to you, and you're going to have to work really hard to understand the meaning behind it. But I think it's really good to, I think it's in terms of like generation and people. Some people need that, and they scratch their head and they come to an aha moment. So in a way, that meaning is there. Like it's almost like they self-discovered it. It's been there, but it's serendipity. You're like, oh wow, that's why it's that, and it's really good. But the problem I think nowadays is people get, I won't say disenchanted, but demotivated when they don't have the grit, you don't have the muscle, you haven't built so to climb the mountain, everything is too hard. And I think nowadays we need to help people out a little bit with a gentle push, not a handout, but just
Hmm.
say, listen, there is a lot of meaning into these things. If so you sometimes to explain a little bit what's behind the front stage is it's important nowadays, because other people just won't engage into these practices and they're going to get lost, because these arts are very old, but it doesn't take too long for to be lost, two generation, three generation, or watered down. So that's why to understand why you do the white crew, to understand the meaning of having a white gi, what is the meaning of having a belt, why do we bow, what does it mean leverage, what does it mean to breathe, what does it mean to all those little micro lessons, to punch, all those things. If you don't give any explanation or wait for the student to come to realization, you might lose a lot of potential, a lot of people. And at the end of the day, this is about making society strong,
Yes, sir.
citizens strong around your communities, right? That's why, beginning I was scared to teach the kids, and now I realize, and I'm so, so happy that Guru asked me that day, would you be interested to teach the kids class with me? And since I could never say no to my instructor, of
Hmm.
course I did it. And then I realized he was the one who was giving me a gift, because now I really feel like I make my community strong. This is very important. When they learn patience, they learn how to. The other day I showed them a little submission, pain compliance. I say it's very important that you understand, because you have to understand what you do to other people. So we do a submission to you, you feel the pain, then you don't want to do that to other people. You're creating empathy that way, right?
Hmm.
The guy that only bullies and submits everybody, he doesn't know what he's doing to others. He hasn't felt that. That's why sometimes hearing yes too many times in your life is not good, because you
Yeah.
never know. You never know what no means. You never know what pain means, right? But the problem is like enabling is not a great teacher in a way. It's pain that tends to teach more, unfortunately, right? It's true, right?
Yeah.
You change behavior when behavior no longer serves, right? When you're like, oh, this is bad and this is really affecting me negatively. Now, some people are stubborn, they will let it go really, really far. But in general, it's only by experiencing those type of things. So those micro lessons here, they make our communities strong. It's very important. So in that sense, amazing, right? That's really
Yeah.
amazing. Yeah.
And being open to all that, I think, helps us see things more openly. And when we close it off, it becomes anger sometimes.
Can be, yeah.
Like if someone is like, you gotta teach the 1 through 5. I can't believe you didn't teach the 1 through 5. Everybody knows that is the first thing you do. Well, not really, you know what I mean? Not necessarily.
Sounds like you come from a background of pretty like old school, like stern, has to be that way. I had some of that too. I went to school in Europe, some of the school, and not to take anything away from anybody, but it was
Hmm.
Catholic school, strict,
Hmm.
where the slap of the hand is, it's they used to bring them on your lap, and they spank you, like I'm
Yeah,
not that, but I guess things it wasn't that long ago with capital, how you say, like a
capital
corporal punishment.
punishment.
Yeah, corporal punishment. It's not completely, how to say, there's a way. My grandma spanked me. I never thought anything bad about my grandma. I
Hmm.
always thought probably deserved that spanking that day. But I think there is yes, too strict. If you don't come from a good place, it's not good. Like, you know what I mean? Like, you have to be careful. Like, it's what you're saying, right? It's not so much the spanking, it's where you're coming from, right? Like, you don't come from a place, okay, he's not gonna learn. that this is important not to do. It's more like, okay, I'm pissed off at you and I cannot deal with my own anger. And I just, that's very important. People that cannot teach kids, you know what they can teach kids? This is my opinion.
Hmm.
They never dealt with their own anxiety. They don't know how to be
Wow.
patient. Yeah, they don't know how, because kids are kids. They do kid stuff. But I tell you, I see my kids, they do it, and in the beginning you you look like you're talking to a turtle that you put on their back. They're like, you're like, my God, this is so the opposite of what I want you to do. But you just breathe it out and go, okay, let's try again. Let me explain. And then within few lessons or a few sessions, you're like, wow. So I just had to give you a chance. But it's not because I want it right away, or I can, I was taught like if you make a mistake, it's wrong, that I cannot deal with that. So I think, yes, I think that's has to do with that. People that cannot teach, they come from a place of anger, they haven't dealt with their own, they say like internal animals. We
Hmm.
have all have animals in the beginning in our bellies, and those animals there to put in check. You have to learn how to deal with your own animals, being greed, jealousy, anger, bitterness, desire, to all those things that we all carry within ourselves, but that we need to transform and put in check and rise above, right? So that's what we do martial art, all that. Now, if it's a kid, man, he's got so much energy, doesn't know what to do with it. I always say again, take a breath and chill, just take a breath. And I see him like, okay. And then he's back, but it's okay, little by little.
One of the coolest lessons I ever learned at the Inosanto Academy was when I first was certified. I never took karate as a kid. I never took any martial arts as a kid or anything like that. And my dad was a biker, so he was very stern, not abusive, but very stern. It was just there was like an understanding of things. And so certified, I always wanted to be a martial arts teacher, and I went to go watch one of Guro Dan's Little Dragons classes. And there was a boy in the middle, and this was almost 20 years ago. I forgot his name, but I'm just gonna call him Billy for now.
Uh-huh.
But he had Little Dragons line up, end of class, and this kid in the middle, little Billy, is like they're supposed to be in attention stance, and he's like, and I'm watching it, and then Guru's looking at him and he's okay, attention stand. And then Guru calls out, he says, Little dragons, what is the best kind of discipline? And the kids yelled out, self discipline, sir. And I watched as Guru leaned over to this little kid and said, did you hear that? You get a chance to discipline yourself right now before anybody else has to do it.
Uh,
And so this is your opportunity. You get a chance because I don't want to do it. Right. And the other instructors, they don't want to do it. They don't want to yell at you. They don't want any of those things. So you have an opportunity right now to discipline yourself. And at that moment, to be 100% honest, I was going through some addiction issues. I lived in a halfway house and I had been voted that I could get on the plane and go to the Inosanto Academy because it was my dream. And I had a lot of people that told me a lot of stuff, okay, about recovery and the way things need to be. In 90 seconds, Guarino Santo gave the children a lesson that I took with me forever and ever. Like, this is your moment, and I-
but listen, that's a great story. And I think it pertains to everything we talked about because the kids, just, it's funny. I say that to the kids all the time because I heard that so many times, I learn it. But you see how, at the end of the day, it's not a matter of time. It's just a matter that the lesson at some point gets to destination. And for you that day, you heard it. That day you heard it. And to me, it's so funny because so many moments like that were like, wow, yeah, I get it. And I heard it from other people. I don't know, but it's just, I don't know. That's amazing. But you see, that can be martial art for you. That, it doesn't have to be martial art, but a good instructor comes with kindness, comes with good intention, like, and I'm sure that helps you, right? That's what I'm talking about, those animals, like you
yeah.
have, if you don't know how to discipline, it means to detach, to take whatever you feel and take a step back from it, okay? And then decide. versus being moved by those things, you know. But sometimes they don't explain us all those things, you know. Sometimes even our parents don't have the codes, you know. They do the best they can. If they feed you, you go to school, maybe you go education, that's already a win, right? But there's a lot of things about us, about human, that we still have to learn. You know, look at the state of the world right now. It's interesting because in a way we super advanced, and in a way we also super backward. And isn't it? Don't we all need more of that? Like, okay, self control, self discipline, just learn, you know, and good values. You know, at the end of the day, you don't have to be it doesn't have to be rocket science. Treat other people with respect, you know, love what you do, just, you know, just be killing just for the sake of killing, not great. Just grab and take, not great. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Discuss, exchange, grow together, not bad. See, it's you know, it's in childish terms, in kids terms, but at the end of the day, you know, we're not that far off, right?
No.
Jimmy, I have to go teach a class at 10, so unfortunately we have to cut it here.
Yeah. Guru Daniel, thank you so much for your time. Uh,
Ah,
I I apologize for doing part of the talking. I don't know.
oh, enjoy, enjoy. And I'd rather have it that way, that we exchange, you know, that doesn't have to be me listening to me all the time. And no, it was great. Thank you. And I learned from you too what you're saying. Thank you for having me over again. Appreciate it.
It's my pleasure. This is Jamie Sparling. That's my name. FormABLE Podcast, Affinity Martial Arts. Like, subscribe. Guro, Sifu, Daniel Lonero, XTMA in El Segundo, California. And I want to come out and see you if that's all right. I want to maybe film something, and then I'm going
Yeah,
to leave my wallet in El Segundo.
that's it.
Thanks for watching. We appreciate you, and we'll see you in the next one.